In this video we're gonna extend the soccer game from last video to a full mature soccer game. As usual, you can find the source code on GitHub. These are the topics we're gonna cover in this episode. We're gonna add a stadium and a sky. We're gonna fill that stadium with people. We will be able to set the amount of power for shooting. We will have multiple players. We will give color to the players. And we will add AI players, so they are controlled by the computer itself. We're gonna handle passing a ball to the other player. We're gonna handle stealing a ball from the opponent. And we're gonna handle the out of field situation where you need to do a kick in or a throw in. And we will show which person has the ball at a certain time. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so now our game looks like this. Let's start by making this a bit more beautiful. First, let's take a look at that goal. If you take a look at the net, you see that from this side you can't see through it, and on this side it's completely transparent. So when I take a look at the net and I look at the shader, I see that it's rendering only on the front side. We should make that both, so now it's rendering on both sides, and then we can make the material a bit more transparent. Like this. So now we have like just a tiny bit of see-through net. Perfect. So the next thing I want to change is the sky. This sky is a bit really basic. You can download a lot of nice free sky boxes. So I downloaded this one, free HDR skies from the asset store. Add to my assets and then open it with the packet manager and import it into my game. And now it's already imported over here, so I only need to set it. So I go to rendering, lighting, environment, and I select one of the newly downloaded skyboxes. Let's go for this one. Another thing which I'm not very happy about at the moment is the text. Okay, this was funny, but now I want to have a real text. So I will change, go to scene and to 2D, hit Shift and F to select this canvas, and now let's set the font to this one. We can make a gradient. Let's say a vertical gradient going from a whitish color to something like red or something. And also I'm gonna add an outline component. So we have an outline on the font, just like that. Yeah, that's better. The next thing I want to add is a stadium. Okay, I found this free stadium. There are not that many free stadiums available, but this one will do just fine. It doesn't have too many polygons, so that's good for the performance. So let's import this into our game. There's actually 3 stadiums in here, so let's just all import them and see which one is the best for our football game. Let's take a look at this one. Let's just see what's the difference anyway. Alright, this one has got a soccer field. We don't really need that, we already have it. So I would say that this one is the most suitable. Okay, so we're gonna go with this Stadium 3. Let's first extract the materials so we can replace them. I'm gonna put them in this folder. And now they have been remapped to these ones that we can just edit. So if I take a look at the stadium now, let's first remove this. Let's just unpack it. So we have no longer a prefab, but just the object in the scene that we can edit. We can remove the soccer field because we have our own, and also the goals. So that's this one, and I guess this is also part of the goal, and this is the other one. Alright, so also this part is not going to be visible anyway, so let's just remove these just for performance reasons. This we can use to put our own text over here. It's only a bit too big, I think, so let's just resize it a little bit, but just leave it there for now. And now we can just, for example, edit the material. So this part that's using material 35, so go to 35. We can, for example, add a texture to that, so it will be not so boring, but will be a bit better looking. Well, this is obviously way too much, but I think that one's fine. Yeah, let's just go for this one. Just a little bit different than having the standard I think this material is also better when we, for example, make this a little bit like this. So now let's just try to fit a stadium on the soccer field. At the moment it's way too small. Let's first rotate it. We need to rotate it over the Z axis 90 degrees. So now let's move it a little bit, and when you resize it, make sure that you don't resize only one size, because we want to have the current shape of the stadium only bigger. So I'm gonna hit the gray button in the middle, and I think this is already much better. Okay, something like this. So let's have a look. Okay, looks good. Actually, I also want to have that cover on the other side, so I just copy it and then rotate it. And now an easy way to make it even more interesting is to add some point lights in here. So you can just go to the scene and add a point light. So this point light is currently at this position, but we can put it inside the stadium. It will give a nice effect. Oh. Let's just increase the intensity. You see, that's already better. I've already done this for the other 4 corners as well. So, and I've also added a bit of lighting in here. So then it would be nice that there would be some people inside the stadium. At first I tried to use these characters from Mixamo, but I found out that they are way too complex to be used as a crowd, and the frame rate was dropping dramatically. You can see the frame rate when you press this stats button over here. If I now press play, you can see the frame rate, but I decided also to display the frame rate inside the game itself, so that you can even see it when the game is released. You can see that this value is pretty much the same as the one that's displayed over here, so it's working quite well. And the script I used to create the frame rate counter is this one. It's very simple. We just measure the time, and every time this update function is called, there is a frame, so we can count how many frames the Unity can process during 1 second, and that's the frames per second that's displayed over here. And if you disable these 2 values, you get an average frame rate, so you can use that to measure the frame rate over a longer time to see if the game in general is performing So finally I replaced the Mixamo character with this simple one that I found on the internet. It's actually this one. It's been scaled a lot, so I made it a bigger scale and I removed all these elements. And then I painted this person in Blender, like so. To create a script to fill the stadium, and therefore I put a few of these prefabs into the scene to see how much they will be separated. So these guys are sitting next to each other. We can see this is the x-axis, so we can calculate this x value minus this x value, and that's the distance between each player. So that's gonna be in our for loop. And also our for loop will start with this player and will end with this player, because then this whole part of the stadium will be filled. So we're also gonna record this x value, and then we're gonna copy this this model once more and put it over here, and this will be our z and y values. We will also loop over them, and we also actually need a guy over here so that we can see here again for the z and y values the for the z and y values how much in every loop they need to be incremented. And here we can see for the z and y values the end of the loop. And after we've done that, we can mirror it for the other side, and we can copy it a little bit and only modify the x value for this part of the stadium, and then we will do a similar thing for this part of the stadium. Well, I might sound a bit confusing, but let's see the script and then you maybe understand it. So over here we have the 8 prefabs that we will use randomly. Over here we have the stadium fill ratio. This is how much the stadium will be filled. A 0 means there will be no spectators. A 1 means every place of the stadium will be filled. So over here we pick a random spectator, and over here you see the script that contains a lot of loops where we go over all the places of the stadium where you can sit, and we recorded the x start and end values and the step. So the step is the value between those two guys. So that's the step for the x value, and for the z and y value this is the step. So, and we use these steps into these for loops. So over here is the step, and then yeah, we check if a random value is larger than the stadium fill ratio, then we will put a spectator on that position. And this makes sure that on average the stadium will be filled, like for example only 70%. This transform also needs to be rotated because of course when we place him on those benches over there, then he needs to be rotated differently so we need to do that also inside the loop. So this is for one side of the stadium, this is for the other side, and this is for the let's say the north and south stand, and this is for the east and west stand. Yeah, well, if you put that in action, it looks like this. You can see that the stadium is now filled for 70%. We can also change the fill ratio because we made it a property over here. We can change it, for example, to 0. Now we will play with an empty stadium. See, that's an empty stadium for you. Only the guys that we just dragged in will be there. They actually don't belong to the game. So, and yeah, I put this crowd script over here inside this script folder, so it will be run whenever this scene is executed. So, and this is the maximum fill ratio of the stadium. Now every place will be filled. You can see that we made a random little bit change in the position of the players, so it looks a bit more nice then, because in natural situation not all players will sit exactly next to each other. So this is more natural look for this crowd of the stadium. In my previous tutorial you could shoot the ball by clicking the left mouse button. What we're now gonna do is when you press down the left mouse button, you can hold it, and the longer you hold it, the more powerful you will shoot. And as soon as you release the left mouse button, you will finally shoot. So therefore I've added this slider, so that's UI element slider, and yeah, it will show, it will disappear when you're not shooting, but as soon as you're shooting it will appear, and it will slowly go from a value of 0 to 1 like this. Yeah, so to do that we also need to change the type of this input from button to pass through. It will be just like with sprint, so it will pass through. Here will be any. The sprint is the shift key, and we're going to use this mouse button in the same way, so you can continuously keep pressing it, and we register if it's pressed or not. So when you look at the code, we have introduced a variable called shooting power. As soon as the shooting left mouse button is pressed, we're going to increase the shooting power until it has a value of 1. And we're also going to set the bar to that, of course. And then if the button is released, so the shoot is false, then if we have shooting power, then we will start to shoot. And with shooting we will also use the shooting power. So time shot is set here, and when this expires we take the shot, and you can see here that now we have the shooting power. We have a little bit of power always, but the shooting power can add up to 20 extra, so we have a value of minimum 10 and maximum 30 for this force that's added to the ball, so we can shoot faster or slower, whatever we want. So let's demonstrate this. So if we play the game, you can see that once I press the left mouse button, you see that bar increasing, and when I release the left mouse button, I can shoot. I can shoot like this, not that fast, or I can keep the left mouse button pressed, and then I shoot much faster. Because we use multiple players now, I've changed this player object from the scene into a prefab by dragging it over here, and I've actually created 2 prefabs for both skins that I use as human players. You can also change the skin dynamically, but I've chosen to make separate prefabs. And I've also got 2 prefabs for the computer players. The computer players contain an AI script that's taking care of the movement for the computer players. And they also contain a player script that handles things like shooting the ball and dribbling with the ball. The human player scripts also have this player script, of course, and they have also a small script human player that contains human specific input for handling the keys. I have this game script that's connected to the scene, so as soon as the scene is starting, the awake function will be called, and in this awake function we instantiate the players, so 2 human players and 2 computer players. These players are also part of a team. A team has a number, it has a certain score, and a list of players, in this case 2 players on each team. We indicate if it's human or not, and the player of the team that is closest to the ball. This can be handy for the computer players to know this information, so we can use that player to do something. To change the color of a player, we can go to the folder where we extracted the textures for the players, and we can copy the diffuse texture to a location, for example over here, and then you can edit it. I'm gonna edit it with paint.net, but you can also use GIMP or whatever you like, and then you can select the part that has a color like this, and you can change the color balance. For example, make this green, and this part too. Oh. This part too. Oh. And then we can save it. And replace the original texture. So now we have a green player instead of a red one. In this version I've added AI players, we got these two prefabs. They contain this AI player script, and what this script does is very basic movements. If we don't have the ball, we are in defend mode, and if we have the ball, we are in attack mode. In attack mode, both players will move towards the enemy goal, so towards our goal, and try to shoot once they're close. One player is moving a bit to the left, the other is moving to the right. And in defend mode, the player closest to the ball will try to steal the ball by moving towards the ball, and the other one will stay behind, between his own goal and the player that is closest to his own goal. So that looks like this. Of course, this needs to be refined, but for now it's just some basic movement for the computer player. So this one girl is trying to steal the ball, and the other player is staying between the goal and the player closest to the goal. And once they are in attack mode, they both move towards the goal, and once they're close enough, they start to shoot. So that makes it already a little bit of a worthy opponent. With the right mouse button, you can now pass the ball to your fellow player. Therefore, we've added this key binding for the right mouse button to the event pass, and that's used inside the human player script. So when that key is pressed, the right mouse button, we will call the pass function on the player script, and this function will start to look at the fellow player and then start to shoot the ball. So the ball will be lost for that player, and we will set the pass with the pass method on the script of the ball. We will make sure that the ball is passing to the fellow player. We record the time that the ball was passed. We use that because we want to have a few delays inside the script. And then we set the pass destination player, and as soon as that is set, you will see that if that is set, so it's not 0, then we will call this method in the update function of the ball, and this will make sure that the ball will move to the fellow player. When it's moved close enough from the first to the player that's accepting the ball, then we switch players. So we don't immediately switch to the player that the ball is passed to, but first we will keep track from the player that is passing the ball, because otherwise it looks quite strange that the ball suddenly is viewed from another angle. But after that delay, we switch the camera to the guy that will receive the pass, and here is the code to move the ball to the position of the player that the ball is being passed to. And finally, when the ball is close enough to that player that needs to receive the pass, then it's arrived, and the ball will stick to the player that receives the pass. It's better if you look at it, you will see how it actually works. If I press right mouse button, it shoots to the other player, and you can see that the camera doesn't immediately move to the next player, but stays a bit with the guy, so you can see that he's really shooting the ball away to somebody, and then the other guy is receiving the ball, and you will also want to see that on the camera. So we switch somewhere in between the pass, we switch from the one player to the next one, and we also make sure that we are looking at the guy that we are passing the ball to. So that makes it look really natural, like you're really passing a ball to that player. You are now able to steal the ball from the opponent. Therefore I've introduced this steal delay of 2 seconds. As soon as you steal the ball, the other guy doesn't immediately steal it back, but there is a 2-second delay, so you have time to walk away with the ball or pass it to another player. So it works like this. If we don't have a steal delay, we check if we can steal the ball. That's very simple. We just measure the distance from the ball, and if we're close enough and we don't have the ball yet, we steal it, we play a sound, and the guy that has the ball loses it, and we will just obtain it. And that looks like this in the game. So it also works on the A players, so they steal the ball now and I can steal it back. Oh, then I need to actually to be a little bit faster to steal it back. So now I can steal it back, and he can steal it back from me after 2 seconds. When the ball is out of the field, we will check that in the player script on the update event. We check for all boundaries, so that's this side, that side, that side, and that side, and on the left and the right side it's a throw-in for the opponent of the guy who last touched the ball, and when it's behind the goal, it's either a corner kick or a goal kick, depending on if the player who's shooting the ball over the line is the one that's defending or attacking. So you can see that code over here, and as soon as one of these events happens, so the ball goes out of the field, we set a timer, because we don't want immediately to have a response, but we want first the ball to go out a little bit to see that it's really going over the line, and then slowly bringing back the player who needs to throw in, and we then wait for a signal. So to take the throw in, there's this code. This is the code for a throw in or a goal kick as well. Yeah, it speaks for itself, I would say. But one important thing is that we need the other players to move away from the ball, because they must not be able to steal it back. In reality, you also need to have a certain distance when somebody takes a corner kick. So that's this function. The player needs to move away from the player that is taking the corner kick, but we also need to make sure it's moving away in the direction of the field and not out of the field, so otherwise the player would stay out of the field. So there's a distance of 8 here. If it's smaller than that, we will move the player away. The player who is throwing in the ball is determined over here, and that's the player of the team who hasn't last touched the ball. So the other team can throw in the ball, and then it's the player closest to the ball that will perform the throw in. So if we take a look at how that is working in the game, you will understand it. So if I shoot the ball out, you see that it's not immediately, it's rolling a little bit further, and then the other guy can kicking the ball. Actually, that should be a throw-in animation, but I will fix that anytime later. And if I shoot the ball here over the line, it will be a goal kick. So, and if I shoot the ball over here, it will be a corner kick. So that's the different out of field situations. The player who has the ball is now displayed in the left bottom corner. If you look over here on the canvas, you can see that we have this corner where is the text for the player who possesses the ball, and we set that code in our general game script that's not player specific. We have this function set player with ball that's been called in several situations, all the cases where a player will obtain a ball. We will call this function. So if we set the text over here, it will always be displayed. It's also possible that there is nobody who has the ball at a certain moment. That's for example when it's called here with null, and then we just don't display a text at all. Furthermore, in this set player with ball function, we also set the camera if it's necessary, if it's a human player, and we also make sure that the ball is on the ground level. And we set a few other variables like the team that has last touched the ball. It can be handy to use these things anywhere in the game. It's very easy to make small mistakes in this kind of game because there's a lot of things happening with switching players and stuff when you're playing the game. So in order to help with that, I created this perform sanity checks function inside the update script of the game script, and what it does is check for a few things that are not logical, like for example, if players are lower than the field, that should never be possible. The same goes for the ball. And also there should always be one player that has input enabled, because we always have a human player that's controllable with the keys. So if anything of these exceptions happens, we will get a message on the display, and we can put a breakpoint and attach this to Unity, so we can stop the code over here and check out what was happening before and what's the situation of all the different variables in the game. So that will help us just to debug a little bit. Okay guys, this concludes our demonstration for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.